Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a moment in every life when the world looks you in the eye and says you can't. You're too poor, too broken, too late, too ordinary. And in that moment you must choose. Will you believe them, or will you believe the voice inside you? The quiet voice that says, you were born for more. Pause. Let the words settle. I want to tell you today about people who had nothing, no wealth, no fame, no family name, no silver spoon, no safety net, no special gift. But what they had was a dream, and a fight in their spirit that refused to die. They were laughed at, rejected, ignored. Some were told they were too dumb, too sick, too weak. But they stood up anyway, again and again and again. And what the world once called a nobody became a hero. Ordinary beginnings don't define your destiny. That simple truth has been forgotten by too many people who look at their lives and see only limitations. When you're born into poverty, when you grow up in a home without stability, when your voice isn't heard, it's easy to believe that you were meant to stay small. You look around and think everyone else started ahead. Their parents had money, their schools had resources, their voices had power. And so little by little the lie creeps in. I'm not one of them. I'm not meant for more. But destiny has never belonged only to the privileged. It has never knocked only on the doors of the rich, the famous, or the fortunate. Destiny doesn't ask where you started. It asks one thing: will you rise from where you are? Some of the world's greatest minds, leaders, and legends began in places no one noticed. They had nothing but hunger. Hunger to be more, do more, give more. They didn't have titles. They didn't have followers. But they had fire. A fire that grew in the silence of obscurity. A fire that no one else could see but them. There is something sacred about starting small, when no one claps for you, when no one believes in you, when you are alone in your room, whispering dreams to the ceiling because there's no one to listen. That's where your character is forged. Not in stages or spotlights, but in the secret places where you choose to keep going, even when no one is watching. Ordinary beginnings teach you grit. When you're used to working twice as hard for half as much, you develop strength that can't be taught in comfort. When you grow up watching your parents struggle, when you walk miles just to reach school, when you have to choose between food and books, you learn how to fight. That fight, that resilience, that deep down determination is the foundation of every true success story. It's not glamorous, it's not easy, but it is real, and real is what builds legacy. The world is full of people who had everything handed to them, and they still lost it all. Not because they weren't talented, but because they never learned how to hold on when things got hard. But when you start at the bottom, when you climb your way up step by step, every inch you gain is earned, every victory is paid for, and that makes you unstoppable. Your beginning might be overlooked by others, but it's not forgotten by destiny. Every moment, every setback, every silent night you spent hoping for something more, it's all being woven into the strength you'll need for where you're going. Nothing is wasted. Not the pain, not the poverty, not the rejection. And if you feel ordinary, that's okay. That's where most greatness begins. In the shadows, in the silence, in the broken places where most people give up. You are not limited by where you start. You are only limited by how much you believe you belong somewhere else. Rejection is not the end. It's the test before the rise. It doesn't feel like it in the moment. In the moment, rejection feels like failure, like a door slammed shut with no warning. It echoes inside your chest, stinging more than words should. It feels personal. You gave your best, you put your heart out there, and still someone said, no, not good enough, not right for us, not now. And when that no comes again and again, it's tempting to believe that rejection is a sign to stop, to shrink, to disappear. But rejection has never been the enemy of greatness. In truth, it is often the birthplace of it. Every person who has ever done something extraordinary has faced rejection. Not once, not twice, but over and over until their skin was thick and their will was unshakable. Rejection tests the sincerity of your dreams. It asks, do you want it badly enough to keep going when no one believes in you? Because when you face rejection, you are standing at a crossroad. The easy road that leads to quitting, and the hard road that leads to breakthrough. And what you choose in that moment will determine everything that comes after. Rejection doesn't mean you're unworthy. It means you're being refined. It is the fire that burns off the need for approval. It forces you to stop relying on applause and learn to walk with your head high, even in silence. You learn to keep building when no one is watching, to keep speaking when no one listens, to keep trying when success feels 1,000 miles away. That kind of strength, the strength to rise after being pushed down, can only be built through rejection. Some of the most successful people in history were told they would never make it. Their ideas were laughed at. Their voices were ignored. Their presence was dismissed, but they kept showing up. They kept writing, creating, speaking, building, even when the world said, "You are not enough." Eventually, those same people who rejected them had no choice but to notice, because rejection can delay your journey, but it cannot deny your purpose, not unless you let it. Sometimes rejection is not a closed door, it's a redirection. It takes you off the path you thought was yours and pushes you toward the one that's truly meant for you. It reveals what is temporary and points you toward what is lasting. What feels like a painful no in one season often turns out to be a divine, "not yet," or a powerful, "look higher." But you won't see that unless you stay the course, unless you learn how to keep walking through the shadows with your eyes on something bigger than your ego. Rejection also humbles you. It strips away pride and prepares your heart for real growth. When you've been rejected, you learn empathy. You learn how to handle pain without passing it on. You learn to value people not for what they give you, but for who they are. And when you finally rise, you rise with grace, not bitter, not angry, but wiser, stronger, deeper. It's easy to praise success, but the truth is rejection builds the foundation success stands on. It's the pressure that creates the diamond, the silence that develops the voice, the pain that prepares the purpose. When you understand this, rejection stops being something to fear. It becomes something you use. You begin to see it not as a reason to stop, but as proof that you are moving, that you are daring, that you are alive in the pursuit of something greater. Real heroes are built in silence and struggle. They are not always the ones standing in the spotlight, wearing medals or getting applause. Often they are the ones walking through darkness alone, unnoticed, misunderstood. While the world praises the visible victories, real heroes are forged deep beneath the surface, in the unseen moments of pain, confusion, and quiet perseverance. They are made in the long nights when the weight of failure sits heavy, and still they choose to get up and try again. Heroism doesn't begin when the world is watching. It begins when no one is. It begins when everything seems to be falling apart, when the heart is breaking, and when giving up would be the easiest thing to do. But instead, something inside says, "Not yet, not now." And that small decision to continue, even when there's no reward, no recognition, and no reassurance, is the soil where greatness is planted. Struggle shapes you. It takes the raw material of your life and carves out strength layer by layer. When you're in the middle of it, it feels anything but heroic. It feels like drowning, like moving through mud, like running a race with no finish line in sight. But those moments are doing something sacred. They are developing patience, endurance, depth. They are stretching your soul wider than comfort ever could. No hero is born from ease. They are born when life demands more than you think you have and you choose to give it anyway. Silence teaches you to listen. When the noise of affirmation is gone, when there's no one clapping or encouraging, you begin to hear your own voice more clearly. You learn what you believe, what you stand for, and what you are willing to fight for. In the silence, you confront yourself. You meet your fears face to face. You hear the lies you've been told, that you're not enough, that you'll never make it. And you start choosing to replace them with truth. Real heroes are those who win the battle in the mind long before they ever win the battle in the world. They don't always have perfect resumes. Many have scars. Many have failed not once but many times. They've known betrayal, loss, and heartbreak. They've cried silent tears in places no one will ever see. But in every loss, they found a reason to keep moving. They refused to let the pain define them. They allowed it to deepen their compassion, sharpen their vision, and strengthen their will. These are the kinds of people who carry power not because they speak the loudest, but because they've walked through fire and didn't let it consume them. Being a hero doesn't mean you have no fear. It means you act anyway, even with trembling hands. It doesn't mean you never fall. It means every time you do, you choose to rise. Real heroism is quiet. It's the parent working 2 jobs to give their children a better life. It's the teenager standing up to peer pressure in a world that rewards conformity. It's the dreamer who keeps building, even when the world says it's impossible. These people don't wait for validation. They live from conviction. They are not motivated by praise. They are moved by purpose. The world may never fully understand the weight they carry, the depth of their battle, or the quiet courage it takes to simply keep going. But every step they take in the struggle, every act of faith in the silence, builds a strength that no storm can shake. These are the real heroes, not created in comfort, but in the quiet, in the hardship, and in the places where the heart chooses to rise again, unseen but unstoppable. Belief in purpose is stronger than any obstacle. When a person knows why they were born, when they truly understand the reason they are still breathing, something inside of them becomes unbreakable. Life will always bring challenges. There will be mountains that seem too high, valleys that feel too deep, and storms that rage with no end in sight. But a person who is anchored in purpose does not bend to the winds of circumstance. They may fall, they may cry, they may even lose everything, but they will not be defeated. Purpose gives pain a meaning. It transforms struggle into preparation and suffering into strength. Without purpose, hardship feels random. It feels like punishment. But when you carry purpose in your heart, you begin to see everything, even the worst moments, as part of a greater plan. The closed doors, the long delays, the betrayals, the heartbreaks, all of it becomes fuel. All of it becomes the fire that purifies and strengthens your calling. People often think that talent is what sets someone apart, or luck, or connections. But the truth is, none of those things matter without belief in purpose. Purpose is what wakes you up when there's no applause, no money, and no visible progress. It's what pushes you through rejection, through fear, through failure after failure. It whispers to your spirit in the dark, keep going. There is something greater on the other side. Every great journey begins with purpose. Not the kind written on paper, but the kind etched into the soul. And that kind of purpose does not come from the outside. It isn't handed to you. It is discovered, often in moments of deep pain or silence. You realize that your life is not an accident, that your gifts are not random, that your voice was meant to speak something this world has not yet heard. And once you realize that, nothing can stop you. Not the critics, not the failure, not even the fear inside your own chest. Obstacles will come. Insecurity, doubt, delays, they'll all show up. People will question you. Some will mock you. Others will leave you. The road will be long. But belief in purpose gives you a different kind of vision. You stop looking at what's missing and start seeing what's possible. You stop focusing on the size of the mountain and start focusing on the size of the mission. You realize that you were not given this purpose because it was easy. You were given it because you were strong enough to carry it. Purpose makes you persistent. It teaches you to endure. It trains you to keep building when the foundation cracks. It pushes you to try again, even after the doors close in your face. Because when you believe that your life is part of something bigger, when you know that you are not just working for success, but for significance, your spirit refuses to quit. You begin to see every obstacle not as a wall, but as a weight that is strengthening you for what's next. Purpose is louder than failure. It is deeper than fear. It is stronger than any enemy, any delay, and any voice that tries to tell you to stop. The world may not understand it. People may not see it. But when you walk in purpose, there is a power that surrounds you. A fire that burns even when the night is long. A peace that stands firm even in chaos. A direction that pulls you forward when everything else is trying to hold you back. Pain can be the birthplace of greatness. Most people try to run from pain. They numb it, avoid it, deny it, hoping it will go away if they just stay distracted long enough. But pain has a way of showing up, no matter how far you try to hide. And what if, instead of seeing it as the enemy, we began to see it as the turning point? What if pain isn't here to destroy us, but to awaken us to who we really are? Some of the most powerful transformations in life begin in pain. Not in success, not in celebration, but in deep personal heartbreak. The loss of someone you love, the betrayal that cuts deeper than words, the disappointment that shakes your confidence, the failure that leaves you questioning your worth. These are the moments that break you open, and in that breaking something new is born. Not weakness, not defeat, but strength. Real, unshakable strength that cannot be taught by ease. Pain has a way of stripping away the unnecessary. It exposes what really matters. It burns off pride and pretense, leaving only the raw truth behind. When you've suffered, you begin to see life differently. You no longer chase the shallow. You begin to seek meaning, depth, and connection. You begin to value time, cherish small victories, and understand others in a way you couldn't before. Pain expands your heart. It deepens your soul. It opens your eyes to suffering in others, and that awareness becomes the beginning of greatness. People who have walked through pain carry a different kind of wisdom. They know how to listen without judgment, how to speak with empathy, and how to lead with compassion. Because they've been through the fire, and they remember what it felt like to be consumed by it. Their greatness is not in how high they've climbed, but in how deeply they've been healed. They don't inspire because they are perfect. They inspire because they've been broken and chose to rise anyway. The world doesn't need perfect people. It needs people who are willing to rise out of their pain and use it to lift others. Every scar tells a story, not just of what hurt, but of what healed. Not just of what was lost, but of what was found on the other side. Some of the greatest authors, leaders, healers, and innovators were born out of tragedy. Their ideas came from desperation. Their passion came from struggle. Their vision was shaped by the moments that brought them to their knees. Pain creates clarity. In your lowest moments, you begin to hear the truth of who you are. Not the version shaped by applause or expectation, but the version that rises when all else is gone. That voice becomes your guide. That clarity becomes your compass. And from that place, your purpose is born, not in comfort, but in the furnace of affliction. It is not the pain itself that creates greatness, but what you choose to do with it. Some people let pain harden them. Others let it refine them. Some stay bitter. Others choose to become better. Greatness is not in avoiding pain, but in facing it with open hands, learning from it, growing through it, and choosing to turn it into something meaningful. Pain can be the very thing that pushes you to your destiny, the pressure that forms the diamond, the weight that builds the strength you didn't know you had. You don't need permission to change your life. Waiting for someone to validate your dreams, approve your plans, or confirm your worth will keep you stuck in places you were never meant to stay. So many people live their whole lives in hesitation, not because they lack talent or vision, but because they are waiting for the right time, waiting for support, waiting for someone to say, yes, you're allowed. But the truth is, no one can give you permission to be who you already are. No one can unlock a door that you hold the key to. Change doesn't ask for permission. It demands courage. It requires a decision. A quiet but powerful moment where you choose to rewrite the story, to turn away from everything that held you back, and walk toward something unknown. That decision won't always be popular. It won't always be understood. But it will be yours, and that makes it powerful. There will be people who don't understand why you want to change. People who benefit from your silence, your smallness, your staying the same. When you start to grow, when you start to rise, it makes others uncomfortable. Because your change forces them to confront their own choices. So they may discourage you. They may question you. But their comfort is not your calling. You don't need them to believe in your journey in order for it to be real. Many of the world's most influential people began their transformations in defiance of expectations. They were told, stay in your lane, be realistic, don't reach too high. But they listened to a different voice, the voice inside that said, you were made for more. That voice doesn't come with fanfare or approval. It comes quietly in still moments when you begin to feel restless with where you are. That restlessness is not failure. It is your soul calling you forward. You are allowed to walk away from what drains you. You are allowed to step into new dreams, even if the old ones didn't work out. You are allowed to start again, without apology, without explanation. Change doesn't wait for permission. It waits for action. A single decision to say, I want more for my life than this, can shift everything. And that decision is yours to make. You don't need perfect timing. You don't need a detailed plan. You don't need everyone's support. All you need is a moment of truth. A moment where you decide that your future matters more than your fear. That your peace matters more than pleasing people. That your voice matters even if it shakes. Change begins the moment you stop seeking approval and start trusting your own intuition. You are the author of your life, and you get to turn the page. You get to leave chapters behind. The ones filled with regret, disappointment, fear. You don't have to stay in a story that no longer fits who you're becoming. The world may try to define you by your past, but you get to define yourself by your vision. And that vision doesn't need to be justified. It only needs to be followed. The longer you wait for permission, the more time you give away. Time that could be used building, healing, dreaming, living. The people who change the world, or even just their corner of it, are not the ones who had it all figured out. They are the ones who moved forward anyway. Who looked around at their life and said, this isn't the end of my story, and then started writing a new one. Broken people change the world when they refuse to quit. The world often sees brokenness as weakness, as something to hide or be ashamed of. But the truth is, brokenness is not the end of someone's value. It can be the beginning of their true power. Some of the most impactful voices, the strongest leaders, and the most compassionate hearts have come from people who have been shattered by life, yet chose to stand up again and again, even when it hurt to breathe. There is something powerful that happens when a person refuses to let their pain define them. Brokenness teaches you things success never could. It teaches you how to survive without applause. It shows you how to find light in complete darkness. It humbles you, softens your edges, and strips away the things that never truly mattered. When someone has been broken, they stop pretending. They become real. And in that rawness, in that honest place, they connect deeply with others. Because they've been where others are. They've walked through the fire and survived it. Not everyone who breaks decides to rise. That's what makes it remarkable when someone does. when they choose healing instead of bitterness, when they decide to forgive instead of hate, when they keep building something beautiful from the ruins of what was lost. These are the people who carry a strength that can't be shaken. They don't just bounce back, they rebuild stronger than before, not because they weren't hurt, but because they refuse to let the hurt be the final word. The world listens differently to someone who's been through pain and still chooses to speak with hope. That kind of voice doesn't need volume. It carries authority because it's real. People are drawn to those who understand suffering because deep down we all carry pain. We all carry wounds. And when someone who has known deep sorrow stands up and says, "You can make it," something stirs inside. It gives others the courage to try. Brokenness also opens the door to compassion. People who have suffered often become the ones who help others heal. They don't look down from a distance, they sit beside the hurting, because they remember what it felt like to be alone. Their pain has trained them to notice details others miss. The silence behind a smile, the fear in someone's eyes, the weight in a quiet voice. And they respond with empathy, not pity, with strength, not superiority, because they know that survival is a victory worth honoring. Every time someone rises after being broken, they give others permission to do the same. They become living proof that the story isn't over, that life after loss is possible, that strength after struggle is real. It doesn't require perfection. It only requires the decision to try again. And sometimes, that single act of courage can ripple farther than they'll ever see. The world doesn't always celebrate broken people who rise, because their victory doesn't look flashy. It looks quiet, steady, sometimes invisible. It's the mother who keeps showing up after heartbreak. It's the survivor who builds a business, a ministry, or a message from their pain. It's the young person who chooses healing over harm, peace over revenge, growth over shame. These are the world changers. Not because they were untouched by life, but because life tried to break them, and they chose to stand anyway. They carry their scars with dignity, not hiding them, but letting them shine as proof of survival, as reminders that they've been through the storm and emerged with deeper wisdom, deeper love, deeper purpose. Broken people who refuse to quit are not just survivors. They are builders, leaders, lights in the dark. They remind the world that beauty can still rise from ashes, and that the most powerful transformation begins the moment someone decides, "This is not where my story ends. From zero, you can become everything." It's not just a phrase, it's a truth that history has proven over and over again. Too often, people think that greatness is reserved for those who were born into it, those who had wealth, education, or powerful connections from the beginning. But the world is full of stories that prove otherwise. Stories of individuals who had absolutely nothing, no money, no support, no fame, and yet they rose to become icons, leaders, inventors, voices that shape generations. Zero is not a curse, it is a clean slate, it is the place where possibilities begin. When you have nothing to lose. And that gives you a kind of freedom others don't have. You are not tied to expectations. You are not limited by tradition. You are not boxed in by someone else's idea of who you should be. From zero you get to choose, you get to create, you get to build something that is completely yours. People often underestimate the power of starting from nothing. They think it's a disadvantage. But what they miss is that starting from zero creates hunger. Hunger to rise, hunger to prove, hunger to overcome. And hunger is one of the most powerful forces in the world. It wakes you up early. It keeps you working when others quit. It sharpens your focus. It fuels your persistence. Some of the greatest achievements have come from those who were driven not by comfort but by hunger, the deep, burning desire to change their story. Being at zero teaches you resilience. You learn to survive without support. You learn to fight for opportunities. You learn how to turn rejection into redirection, how to create doors when none are open. And through that process, you grow stronger. You become the kind of person who doesn't fold under pressure, who doesn't give up at the first sign of resistance. You become a force to be reckoned with, not because life has been easy, but because you learned how to push through the hard. Zero also humbles you. It reminds you that you are not owed anything, that every inch of progress must be earned, that success is not guaranteed, and that humility becomes one of your greatest assets because it keeps you grounded. It keeps you teachable. It keeps you grateful. People who rise from nothing often carry a different kind of gratitude, not just for the wins but for the journey. For every step forward, for every lesson learned, for every moment they didn't quit. The beauty of starting at zero is that your journey inspires others. When someone sees a person who looks like them, who came from a place like theirs, rise to success, it breaks something open in their own mind. It makes them believe that maybe, just maybe, they can do it too. That ripple effect is powerful. One life rising from zero can ignite 1,000 more. There is no rule that says your beginning defines your future. There is no law that says your past must dictate your potential. You could have been overlooked, underestimated, or ignored your entire life, and still rise, still lead, still win. What matters most is not where you start, but what you choose to believe about where you're going. If you believe that zero is the end, you'll stay stuck. But if you believe that zero is just the beginning, you'll start building something that no one else can take away. You don't need a perfect background. You don't need a head start. You don't need anyone's permission. From zero, you can become the author of a legacy. From zero, you can rise with strength, with vision, with purpose. From zero, you can become everything you were born to be. Here's a powerful and emotional conclusion that ties together all the keynotes and leaves your audience inspired. So now you've seen it, not the fantasy, but the truth. The truth that ordinary people like you and me, can rise from nothing. That brokenness can birth purpose. That pain can forge power. That rejection is not your ending, but your test. That silence, struggle, and starting from zero are not your limits. They are your launching pads. You don't need to wait. You don't need to ask. You don't need a title, a name, or permission. What you need is already inside you. The courage to believe, the fire to keep going, the strength to rise again and again, even when no one claps, even when no one sees. Because heroes are not born in comfort. They are made in the shadows. They rise not because life was easy, but because they refused to quit. So to every soul still doubting, still waiting, still wondering if they matter, hear this now: you were never meant to stay small. You were never meant to be invisible, because you were born to rise. From zero, you can become everything, and the world is waiting for your story.